Hey everyone, thanks for checking back into the channel. This content I would consider to be part 2 of the walk around of your new scope that I'm doing for people who are new to precision optics or new to owning their first Arken Optic. The last content, or you may say part 1, that I just put together the other day had to do with setting up your ocular focus, or this near end, on your new scope. So if you haven't seen that content or you don't know how to do that, I suggest you scroll back or check that out and figure out how to get this set up before you move on to what I'm going to talk about today. And today, what I'm going to get to is setting up your side focus or your parallax. Before I get to that, I'm going to talk about one of the little strategies that I use and that I push on to people to help them remember everything that has to do with setting up your new scope. And what I like to do is think about the scope kind of like a clock from this position. So if you've got the scope mounted all up on your firearm and you're looking down at your scope, you can think about the things that you need to address, the things that you need to kind of have hands-on, sort of like a clock. And what I mean by that is starting off with clockwise, I should say, but starting off with your ocular adjustment. So you're going to want to get this set up, you know, when you get to where you're going, maybe even before you even leave. Get this all set up. And we're going to work our way around the scope clockwise. So you're going to figure out which magnification setting do you want to run your scope on. So you're going to get this all set up. And this is where your magnification dial is on most scopes. Some older ones have a big dial down here, but with your Arken Optics, you're going to find it right here. And we're going to work our way around clockwise. That's going to get us to the side focus, or this parallax, that we're going to talk about today in a minute. And then you'd work your way over to setting up your elevation turret. Once you get that all set, you keep working your way around and you get your windage turret set up. So that's just a quick tip that I use when I am looking at my glass before I engage a target. And it's not as long as what I just did. You're going to do this really fast. You're going to boom, 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 and away you go, and you're ready to send them down range. But with that little tip out of the way, let's get to what is the side focus? Why do these things even have them? Why do old scopes not have them? And how important is this? So with that, the side focus generally on your Arken, well, actually, let me rewind. I'm calling this a side focus or parallax as it pertains to an Arken Optic. It would not be a side focus on some other, I'm kind of looking at my pile of scopes over there, but on some other model scopes, this actually may be up here as well, okay? And I think I mentioned that a bit ago. But for your Arken Optics, this parallax adjustment, this is a setting that is going to, unlike your ocular adjustment that is going to focus your reticle, this is going to focus your downrange viewing of the targets or what you're viewing at downrange. Hence this usually having some sort of an indicator for distance. Now, Arken Optics has been putting a number indicator on there, and we'll get to that, but they also use sort of a wide arrowing hash to let you know which direction you're going with this. I have had some scopes that this dial turns the opposite direction for distances than my Arkens. So the Arken Optic, I've got an EP5 here, and this EP5, I can't even recall, this goes all the way down to a setting of 25 yards. And what that means is at the 25 mark on here, you are generally going to be in the range of getting the target downrange at 25 yards in focus. Now, a huge thing to keep in mind is these number indicators are just reference points. If I'm looking through this scope, I've got contact lenses on right now, with these contacts on versus no contacts, or with my glasses that I wear, this setting is going to vary a little bit. Or if you look through this scope, that 25 may not exactly be 25. It can be a little this way or a little bit this way. Keep that in mind. That is very important. We get a lot of people criticizing scopes. These numbers are off, they're way off, and they're blowing up over it. They're not off, they're reference points. A lot of the, the scopes, the EP4, if I recall, it did not even have numbers. It just had that hash on there, okay? So this focus is going to get your image clarity on point down there so you can see what you're looking at. Now, I don't want to say more important, but the other reason that this is extremely important is when you set this up, you've got multiple pieces of glass that we're looking through when we look through here, okay? Now, glass does a lot of things. Light is being bent. And without getting too technical on this, we want a perfectly straight view when we look through this. We don't want anything canted or off. And by setting this up and not bending the light wrong, this is going to ensure that our eyeball looking through here, looking through this piece of glass and looking through these mechanisms and getting out this end piece of glass, that everything is in a line. So if it's not, what happens is it's sort of like looking through here. Now I can look through a scope and I can cant it just a bit and I can still see through there, and I can still see the target, and I can still see the reticle, and I can still send the round down range. But I'm gonna miss because everything is not perfectly lined up. Even though I can still see through there, we can be off just a tad, but we're making it, our vision, our sight, our line of sight is still getting through the tube. So it's extremely important to get this parallax set up just right. Now, how do you do that? All right, so getting to setting this up, and how am I going to explain this? You can go all over the internet, you can go over YouTube and then Google and stuff to do it. But what I like to do is I like to take my rifle and I like to get my reference point close as I can with the number or the dial just by focus. So I'm going to grab this rifle because there is a scope on it. All right. And the chamber and everything is empty on this. So when I look through this scope, I'm going to first adjust this right here. I'm going to get down range as close as I can to in focus. Now, that's getting me 95% of the right on, but I'm not right there just yet, or maybe I am, but how am I going to check that? It's real simple, actually. So the way I'm going to check that is when I aim downrange, what I'm going to do is where my cheek weld is on my rifle stock, I'm going to make sure not to move the firearm, but I'm going to wiggle my head in little circles looking through the scope at the reticle and at the target downrange that I'm aiming at. If I can move my head around like this, and even though I'm moving my cheek plant just a little bit, if the center of my reticle stays on my point of aim, I know I have my parallax set just right, and I'm getting that perfect line of sight. I'm getting it perfect right through the scope. I'm not bending the light at all. Now, if when I plant my cheek and I'm wiggling around just a little bit, if I see the reticle moving around on the target, well, that's letting you know wherever you planted your face on that rifle and how you're holding it, you can miss by that much. So if it's moving while you're doing that little wiggle dance there, move your side focus, that parallax knob, a little bit one way or the other until you notice the center aim point on your reticle stays right on target where you're trying to hit. Then you know you've got it all set up. This is something you can practice. You can do this at the range. You can do this at home. Aim your rifle out the backyard, wherever you want, at a couple things, and mess around at unknown distances with your side focus. Get it in focus. Start to wiggle your head around a little bit, and you'll notice if you set that side focus up on purpose, off by a nudge. So when you're looking through here, you know, this thing says 100. I know it's about 100 yards, but boy, I'm going to turn this thing to 300. Well, I can still see the image. Plant yourself in the rifle and wiggle your head around. You're going to see how much that reticle moves and your potential miss could be. Now, the reason some scopes don't have these is they just have a set parallax in them. Some fixed power scopes, a lot of the times it's just a general 100-yard parallax, and they don't have this side focus to even mess with anyway. But anything past 100 yards, if you were to move around on those scopes, you may notice the reticle moving some. This is a precision optic. You've got lots of areas of adjustment to make those precision shots. And this side focus is something that's extremely important for doing. It's probably the one thing that I would think, other than learning how to set up holdovers with your turrets. But this is the one area that a lot of people are just relying on those numbers and they're not setting it up properly. Or they're just relying on getting that quick focus with their eye and are not fine tuning this just a little bit. And if you're shooting 50 yards or 100 yards and you have a really good consistent plant on your rifle, you may not even notice it. But if you're stretching your shots, and if you're a guy who likes to shoot out 4, 5, 6, 1,000 yards, you can chime in on the comments, because you can probably let some people know, some viewers, how important it is to set this up. If you've got this thing wrong and you're trying to make that 800-yard shot, it's still in focus and you've got it at 400 yards, the slightest movement or the slightest of planting yourself on that rifle is going to cause you to be off a whole lot. All right. So, hey, that is setting up your side focus or your parallax on your Arken Optic, or any optic, precision optic that has one of these. Kind of trying to make this as simple as I can, but I am expressing the importance of setting up your ocular focus and your side focus before you get to messing around with getting your elevation turret and your windage turret going. So thanks for checking back in. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you mess around with this or you have any other tips or tricks to setting up your parallax on your optic. Till next time, keep on shooting.